Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Jake here. Hope everybody's having a great day out there today. The Oscar nominations are on Tuesday, which means it's time to predict what I think is going to get nominated for all the Oscars. I did this last year and I loved doing it, so let's do it again. I'm not going to talk about the documentary or the short film categories. I don't know anything about them. Everything else is fair game, so let's jump in. So starting with Best Picture, we have 10 here that honestly I think is kind of locked up. And the BAFTAs kind of reassured everything that I thought was going to happen and what I think is going to happen at the Oscars. I think Oppenheimer is your runaway frontrunner. I think it's just going to sweep Best Picture everywhere. And honestly, I would put a good amount of money down right now that Oppenheimer is going to win Best Picture at the Oscars. I think it's just going to. Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, The Holdovers, Barbie, four more that are also just getting in pretty much everywhere. The only thing that I would say is Barbie did miss Best Picture at the BAFTA Awards, and so that does raise a little bit of eyebrows. We'll talk about a couple of other categories that might affect later on. But I still think Barbie's going to get in Best Picture at the Oscars, and especially in a field of 10, there's just no way that it's going to miss. A few more that I think for sure are going to get in: Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, Maestro, movies that have been getting in a lot of places that are pretty strong for Best Picture. Anatomy of a Fall has been getting some good screenplay love, and especially with Barbie moving into adapted screenplay, which we will also talk about later, it kind of makes Anatomy of a Fall the frontrunner for original screenplay, which makes it honestly really strong for Best Picture, and I think it's a pretty much locked in spot. And then to round out the last two spots, I have Past Lives and The Zone of Interest. The Zone of Interest performed really well at BAFTA, so I feel really strong about how well it's going to do at the Oscars. I do still have it at the 10 slot just because some of the other precursors, it didn't do as well as expected, but it still has been performing pretty well. And so I think the Oscars are really going to go for it, and they're really going to love it. And with each category, I am going to talk about some movies that I think are on the outside looking in that might have a shot, might not, but movies that I think are contenders in here. And really the only one that I can think of for Best Picture is The Color Purple. And I still don't feel very strongly about it. It's gotten Critics' Choice Best Picture, got nominated for SAG Ensemble, but it's just not as strong as these other ones, and especially given how well Zone of Interest did at the BAFTAs, the amount of earlier awards that stuff like Past Lives and Maestro have gotten, I feel really strongly about the 10 that we have. Moving on to Best Director, Christopher Nolan, another just runaway frontrunner. I think he's going to take this. It's his award. Congratulations. I also think that despite missing BAFTA nominations, I think Scorsese and Lanthimos are going to get nominated here. Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things are both going to have great days on Tuesday. They're going to have a great morning, getting lots of nominations. And I see no world in where those two miss at all. So I think those three are for sure locked in. And then you kind of have these last two spots. And I have Alexander Payne for The Holdovers and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. Now, you might notice that name that's underneath the line next to me, Greta Gerwig, not in my top 5. And the big thing that I think is hurting Greta Gerwig's chances is how poorly it did at the BAFTAs. Didn't get BAFTA Best Film nominated, didn't get the BAFTA Best Director nomination. And so it makes me think that Barbie is kind of weak. And Greta Gerwig, unfortunately, I think she's really weak to get nominated for the Best Director Oscar. And so the two names that I have in its stead, Alexander Payne for The Holdovers, we'll talk about him first. He got nominated for BAFTA Best Director and DGA, two major guild and industry awards for directors. Very clearly, they loved Alexander Payne's directing in this movie, so I think he's going to get nominated. And then the other one that I think is going to get nominated is Jonathan Glazer in the Zone of Interest. And I think with how well that movie did at the BAFTAs, the PGA nomination that movie got, I think Jonathan Glazer is also going to have a great day. And they usually like to go for a more foreign kind of director, for more of a foreign contender kind of movie. You can go all the way back to the 2019 Oscars where you have Paweł Pawlikowski getting nominated for Cold War. You have Thomas Vinterberg getting nominated for Another Round. You had Ryusuke Hamaguchi getting nominated for Drive My Car. And you had a Triangle of Sadness getting nominated for director. And so I think we're just going to see that trend continue to move on. And I think we're going to see Jonathan Glazer get in for Best Director here at the Oscars. The other one that I would say might have a shot is Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, just because of how well that movie has been doing in the precursors. But she hasn't been getting director nominations, and so I think she has an outside shot, but I think Greta Gerwig has a better chance than she does, and even then, I don't see Greta Gerwig getting into this top 5, unfortunately. All right, Best Lead Actress. I've had this 5 for a while, and I considered maybe changing some things, but I just feel really strongly about it, and I don't think it's going to change. So our top 2, Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone. Yes, even with Lily Gladstone missing the BAFTA nomination out of nowhere, I still think these two are your front runners. But I do think it shows how strong Emma Stone is, given that she did beat Lily Gladstone for the Critics' Choice Award. It's very interesting. So I think Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone both for sure getting in. I also think Carey Mulligan is also going to get nominated. She's gotten nominated everywhere. Despite people's kind of lower views on Maestro, she's still gotten in everywhere. And the other two, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall and Margot Robbie for Barbie. Margot Robbie has kind of surprised in where all she's gotten. Like, she got nominated at the BAFTA Awards, even though Barbie missed Best Film and Best Director. Like, it still shows how strong she is in the Best Actress race. And then Sandra Hüller, another name that's been nominated kind of everywhere throughout the awards season. And her name has really been making the rounds in the awards conversation. And so I think they're going to get nominated. And I think these 5 are just really solid. And honestly, I don't really see it going another way. I would say your other 2 contenders here that possibly have a shot is Greta Lee in Past Lives. I would love for her to get nominated, but unfortunately, she just does not have the precursors to kind of back her up. So I can't predict her, but if she did end up getting in, I would love it. I just don't see that happening. And then Annette Bening for Nyad. She did get nominated at SAG, but she really hasn't been getting nominated anywhere else. So again, just really hard to predict, but it's possible she does have an industry nomination. And so that definitely doesn't hurt, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Best Lead Actor. We have 4 slots here that I think are pretty locked in, and then it's that 5th slot where it's kind of a toss up. So your 4 that I think are for sure getting in here, Cillian Murphy, Paul Giamatti, Bradley Cooper have been nominated everywhere. And then Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction, even though he did miss the BAFTA nomination, I think he's still really, really strong. He did get nominated pretty much everywhere else. And so I think the Oscars are going to go for American Fiction in some key categories. And so I think Jeffrey Wright has a great shot here. I think he's probably going to get in. It's this 5th slot that I am not entirely sure where to go. You have Coleman Domingo for Rustin and Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon. They've both kind of shared nominations a little bit, but I'm going to go with Coleman Domingo based off of 2 things. And it's 2 nominations where Coleman Domingo got nominated over Leonardo DiCaprio, and that's SAG and BAFTA, the 2 industry award nominations that have happened for actors. Leonardo DiCaprio did not get nominated in either of those places. Coleman Domingo did. And so, even though Leonardo DiCaprio had a stronger start of the season, got nominated for Golden Globe, got nominated for Critics' Choice, I think it's going to be Coleman Domingo here. And I haven't seen Rustin. I don't know if his performance is any good. Coleman Domingo, I think, is a great actor. I do love Leonardo DiCaprio in Killers of the Flower Moon, so I would like to see him nominated. But I think that's your 5. And maybe Leo can get in. Leo's an Oscar darling, so you might see him get in. But I think I think these are your 6 options, and you can kind of cycle them around however you want. All right, Best Supporting Actress. I feel like we're in a pretty similar spot here. I think we have 3 people who've been nominated everywhere, for sure getting nominated. It's Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple. They're for sure getting in. I also have Sandra Hüller for The Zone of Interest. Like I said, I think her name is just out there. I think people are loving her performances. So I don't see her missing here. I think Zone of Interest is going to have a great morning, and especially with how well that movie did at the BAFTA Awards, I think Zone of Interest is going to do fairly well at the Oscars. For this 5th slot, it's kind of between America Ferrera and Barbie and Jodie Foster in Nyad, and I'm not really sure which one to go with. I'm leaning more towards America Ferrera. I think she has that Oscar scene, and Barbie is the more popular movie of the two. Not a ton of people have really seen Nyad, and so I'm kind of going back and forth in my head. I think I am gonna go with America Ferrera and Barbie. This could be a terrible decision, but we'll see what ends up happening. I don't know what's going to happen. Best Supporting Actor is really, really interesting because you have a fair amount of people who are in contention for these slots. Now, the 3 names that have been nominated everywhere, Robert Downey Jr., I think he's going to sweep. I think he's going to win. You can take it to the bank. You also have Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon, also been doing pretty well. And then Ryan Gosling for Barbie. Those 3 for sure getting nominated. Mark Ruffalo started out very strong, got nominated for Golden Globe Critics' Choice, but he missed SAG and BAFTA. Kind of crazy. So I still think they're going to nominate Mark Ruffalo here. And for the 5th slot, I'm actually going to go with Willem Dafoe, also in Poor Things. I think they're just going to double nominate it right here. Willem Dafoe, big name at the Oscars, so I think he has a very great shot of getting nominated. He also got nominated at SAG, where Mark Ruffalo missed, and so it shows that people love Willem Dafoe's performance, and people are loving him in that movie. And so I'm going to say they both get nominated. One of those people could miss, but in my right mind, I can't keep one of them out. And so I have to keep them both in. But this leaves a few kind of key names on the outside looking in that have a genuine shot. I would put Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction in there. He got nominated at SAG. Dominic Sessa in there for The Holdovers. He was nominated for Young Actor at Critics' Choice and also was nominated for Supporting Actor at the BAFTA Awards. And then also Charles Melton, who hasn't really gotten a lot of nominations, but people are talking about him. His name is out there. And so I would say he's the furthest away from getting nominated, but his name is out there. People are talking about him, which kind of gives him a shot. So that's where I'm at. Best Supporting Actor is going to be kind of crazy. I'm going to freak out no matter what happens. So I'm ready just to know who gets nominated. Best Adapted Screenplay. This is where we kind of have some shakeup from the rest of the awards season, and that's Barbie getting considered as adapted at the Oscars, but being considered original at everywhere else. So Barbie now jumps into this already pretty crowded pool of adapted screenplay contenders, and Barbie is kind of jumping on top of them. Barbie is more than anything, I think, a screenplay contender. I think it had original screenplay in the bag, and now that it's competing in adapted screenplay, I still kind of think it has adapted screenplay in the bag. I think it's gonna end up winning. But it's up against movies like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Poor Things, which I think those 3 are also all going to get nominated as well. For that 5th slot, I'm going to go with American Fiction. Again, I think the Oscars are going to give the American Fiction some pretty key nominations. And the nomination package of screenplay, actor, and picture kind of works in its favor. And I think that's a good little nomination package. So I'm going to give it a nomination in adapted screenplay. I think that's going to happen. The only one that I would say probably has an outside shot is The Zone of Interest. And again, playing off of how well it did at the BAFTA, it did get nominated in this category at the BAFTAs. But American Fiction, I think, is just a little bit stronger. As a screenplay kind of movie, Zone of Interest isn't as much of a screenplay movie as American Fiction is. So I'm going to give American Fiction the edge here, but don't be surprised if Zone of Interest jumps in here. And rounding out the above the line categories, we have original screenplay. And because Barbie is not considered an original screenplay at the Oscars, it kind of makes this category feel a little hollow. So it's honestly one where anything can happen, especially when we get down to that final slot. There's really only 4 movies that I think are like probably going to get in. I think Anatomy of a Fall is your front runner. It's probably going to end up winning. Unless The Holdovers ends up taking it. I would probably call that number 2. And I think The Holdovers is a lot more popular with the Oscars bunch than people think it is. The Holdovers did really well at BAFTA, got nominated for stuff like PGA, DGA. So it's got some good buzz behind it. Also, Past Lives is going to get nominated for original screenplay. I'd probably call that number 3. And then we also have Maestro, which because of how hollow this category kind of is, and because it's getting nominated in some key areas, lead actor, lead actress, and best picture, I don't see it missing here in original screenplay, especially with how hollow this category is now. For that 5th slot, I'm going to go with May December. Even though it hasn't really got nominated anywhere, it's because Barbie is kind of filled in that last slot. But May December, people are talking about that movie. I've heard a lot of how people like this movie. The other contender maybe is Air, but Air has a really far outside shot, but I just kind of needed one to fill in here. So again, one where this 5th slot is just kind of up in the air, and it's just because this category isn't as competitive as in years previously. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I think this 5 has the best shot at getting nominated. All right, moving into the tech categories, let's start with cinematography. I think it's just this 5. And I don't think there's a movie that even has close to an outside shot. I just think it's this 5. I don't even know what I would put at number 6 if I was to think of a number 6. It's going to be Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, Maestro, and The Zone of Interest. Lock it up, take it to the bank, call it a day. That's it. This is the 5. Costume design is a really, really interesting one. I think you have 4 that are pretty sure locked in. I think you have Barbie, Poor Things, The Color Purple, and Killers of the Flower Moon all going to get nominated. And then this 5th slot is a little weird. I see Napoleon as a possible contender. Wonka, I think, kind of has an outside shot. I am actually going to go with Oppenheimer, and this is a really weird pick, but I have one movie to point to that I think helps my case out, and that is The Irishman. The Irishman got nominated for costume design back at the 2020 Oscars for men wearing suits, but I think it was just the nature of the movie that it was in, and so they wanted to nominate it as much as they could. And Oppenheimer, I think, is going to be really, really similar. I think Oppenheimer is going to have the same effect, but to even more of a degree, because Oppenheimer is the Best Picture frontrunner. The Irishman wasn't even the Best Picture frontrunner when that got nominated, but with Oppenheimer being as strong as it is, I think it's going to get nominated here. I could be wrong. It could end up being Napoleon, but looking at what happened with The Irishman a few years ago, it makes me feel really good about predicting Oppenheimer here. And so I'm predicting Oppenheimer. This could be a bad decision, but this is one of my my bold picks for this.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Best editing is also a pretty interesting one. I think you have 6 movies here that you can kind of flip and move in and out wherever you kind of want to. I think Oppenheimer's winning it, like for sure. It's just gonna win. I also think Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things are just gonna get nominated just by nature of what the movies are. And then for those last 2 spots, I have Anatomy of a Fall and Barbie. Anatomy of a Fall is crafted really, really well, and the screenplay really works with the editing and how that movie is presented and how it moves back from the court case to the events of the movie that are happening. So you're kind of jumping back and forth, and it's this like as things are revealed, you get to kind of see how they unfold. It's very much a good little editing contender. So I see that one getting nominated. And then Barbie as well. I think Barbie is a really strong tech player. So I think it'll end up getting nominated here. But the one that I think could possibly ruin the Barbie party here is The Holdovers. And this is another one where The Holdovers is just a stronger movie, I think, right now at the Oscars. And I think it's really, really well loved and it's really well crafted. And the pacing really helps the comedic effect and stuff like that. And it really just takes its time crafting these beautiful characters and this beautiful story. So I think The Holdovers could crash the party here. But I'm going to predict Barbie. I think it's just the style of that movie really has it going in its favor in the editing category. So I'm going to predict it. But don't be surprised if The Holdovers ends up in there. Makeup and hairstyling, the three that I have locked in are Maestro, Poor Things, and Oppenheimer. All of those use pretty big prosthetics, and so I see those as pretty big contenders. I also have Golda getting nominated here. It's gotten a lot of good precursors, so we'll put Golda in there. And then for my fifth slot, I'm going to put in Killers of the Flower Moon. This is not as obvious of one, but it has been getting nominated places, so clearly people are seeing the makeup and hairstyling in that movie as well. The other one that has an outside shot, I think, is Society of the Snow. I'm still not entirely sure whether Society of the Snow is as strong of a player as we think it is or not. We're really just going to have to find out on Tuesday morning if Society of the Snow is going to get anything outside of international feature. So we'll see. Production design, I think this five is also pretty well locked in. I have Barbie, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and The Color Purple. I think that's a pretty clear-cut kind of five. The only one that I think could get cycled out for The Color Purple is Asteroid City. It's Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's movie is very well known for its immaculate kind of production design, and I'd love to see Asteroid City get nominated here because otherwise it's not going to get any nomination. So I'd love to see Asteroid City show up here. But I have The Color Purple just because it is a period kind of film, and they have to recreate this kind of 1920s kind of southern Mississippi kind of feel. I don't even know if it takes place in Mississippi, but it's the vibe. It's the general vibe. It's the set design really recreating that time and that area in the United States. Best score is another one where I feel like the five that we have are, I think those are just going to get nominated. Oppenheimer is your front runner. I think it's just going to win. It's going to sweep everywhere. Also, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, all pretty big contenders, have been getting nominated in some pretty major places. So I think all of those are pretty safe nomination bets as well. And then I also have Zone of Interest at number 5. People have been talking about the score for this movie, even though it's only 10, 15 minutes long, but people have been talking about it as a masterpiece and masterful, beautiful, emotional music. So I'm going to say that gets nominated here. The other one that possibly has a shot, and this one terrifies me, it's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and it's only because of the John Williams name drop. If John Williams can get in anytime for any movie, it can be for Indiana Jones 5. Like, you never know. You never know. He got nominated for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, so you truly never know. Best original score, I feel pretty good about this 5 as well. What Was I Made For and I'm Just Ken are the two songs that have won at precursor awards. They've been getting nominated everywhere, so those two are very safe bets. Road to Freedom by Rustin, I think, will get in here as well. And also The Fire Inside from Flaming Hot. This is Diane Warren. I've talked about it last year, but Diane Warren just gets nominated. Whether she wins or not, that's a whole other thing. But Diane Warren gets nominated. She gets nominated every time. So once you find out what the Diane Warren song is, which this year is The Fire Inside, you just got to put it in. You got to put it in. And then the last pick I'm going to have is Keep It Moving from The Color Purple. Just by virtue of I'm not sure what other song could get nominated here. I do have Dance the Night from Barbie in here. But the rule is you can only have 2 songs from one movie get nominated in original song. So if you're going to put in Dance of the Night, you have to take out What Was I Made For, and I'm Just Ken, and I don't think those are going anywhere. But I have Dance of the Night here just by virtue of it being associated with Barbie, and it possibly has a shot to jump in there somehow. And then It Never Went Away from American Symphony. It's John Batiste. He's very well loved at the Grammys and stuff like that. He's a pretty popular artist, so I put him in here as well, and his odds on Gold Derby are pretty good. But I still think he's going to have an outside shot. This 5 seems to be it. For Best Sound, I feel pretty good about this 5. We have Oppenheimer, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, Zone of Interest, and Ferrari. I just feel really, really good about this 5. I feel really great, and I think these are going to get nominated. The 2 that I think kind of have an outside shot are Barbie and Napoleon. Barbie, just by virtue of it being popular and being a big tech player, it is also pretty linked to the editing Oscar, and so Barbie, if it gets nominated in editing, I think it'll also share a nomination in sound. And I think if we see Barbie in sound, I think that would be a pretty clear indication that it'll get nominated for editing as well. Napoleon would be the other one. Napoleon just has a bunch of cannons and gunfire and muskets and horses and stuff like that. So I think that could get a sound nomination as well. But I feel pretty good about this 5. So we'll end up seeing what happens. Best visual effects is kind of an interesting one. I think my top 4 here is pretty great. The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Poor Things, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I feel like these are really, really good picks. For my 5th slot, I'm going to go with Godzilla -1. It's the talk of Hollywood right now. People are talking about it a lot, and people loved that movie. And because of the budget that it had and how impressive the visual effects were, I think it's going to end up getting nominated. So I'm going to put it in this top 5 spot. The other 3 movies that I think have a shot, Society of the Snow, Napoleon, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, they have shots. Society of the Snow and Napoleon and Indiana Jones have been nominated other places, and they got some nominations at the VES Society as well. But we'll see what ends up happening. I feel good about this 5. I don't see it going any other way, but you never know. Best animated feature, I think Spider-Man and Boy and the Heron are for sure locks right here. I'm also going to put in Elemental. It's Pixar. Pixar usually gets nominated. Elemental was pretty well liked as well, so I'll put in Elemental. I'm also going to put in Nimona, which has gotten some pretty good nominations throughout, and then I'm going to put in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I think these are just really, really strong. I think these 5 are going to end up being your animated feature nominees. I do think that Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget has a shot. I think it only got nominated at the BAFTA, though, just because it's a British movie. But you never know. It could pop in there somehow. You know, Shaun and the Sheep, Farmageddon got in one year, so, you know, anything can happen at this point. And then the other one on the outside looking in would be Wish, but Wish has missed some pretty key nominations. So I don't see Wish getting in. And it was a pretty unpopular animated film anyways. And then Best International Film, last category that we'll talk about. I'm not as well versed in this one near as much, but Zone of Interest and Society of the Snow, I think for sure are going to get in here. And the other 3 that I have are Fallen Leaves, Taste of Things, and Perfect Days. Again, I don't know too much about any of these outside of those top 2. But I have heard about Fallen Leaves and Perfect Days and stuff. Heard they're very good. The other 2 that I think are on the outside looking in, The Teacher's Lounge and 20 Days in Mariupol. 20 Days in Mariupol is a documentary contender. It's like the documentary frontrunner. So maybe it gets a little double nomination like movies like Honeyland or Flea in the past. You never know. But like I said, I don't know much about the international feature films outside of those top 2. So those are my predictions. And those are my predictions for the 2024 Oscars. I just cannot wait. I'm so excited just to see what gets nominated. It's one of my favorite times of the year. But you can expect a reaction video probably that Tuesday. It will just all depend on how quick I'm able to edit it while having work and stuff like that. But thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to my reaction video coming up soon. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.